Hey, everybody. My name is Geoff Livingston, and I am the author of a new photo book called Not My President, 5 Years of Resisting Trump. That's a lot of photos for 5 years. And I guess I've known Phil for a while. He asked me to share one piece of advice that I learned along the way. And I actually got it from this guy named David Meerman Scott. And that's you do not have to be a part of every party.
Ooh, you don't have to be a part of every party. Wow, that's a good jump point, man, because when we started out, 12, 13 years ago, you were at Buzzbin. You were the guy behind that. I mean, you were on Twitter and I was like, "Hey, this guy's really smart. He's talking about marketing."
I don't
And
know
now
about
you're not.
that.
Well, I at least thought, I don't know, at least I thought you were. So there you go.
Thank you.
So, and I know a lot of people did too. So let's rewind, Geoff, to where Twitter used to be, and then let's bring it forward to where it is, because I think it's important to give us a little history lesson here. What was Twitter when you started out on it?
Yeah, so Twitter was a lot different, right? Twitter was this feed where you had very short updates. It didn't really even have videos or pictures or anything, and it had a very simple stream, right? And so, when we started talking with each other, it was a very small group of people that were really excited about communications and marketing, but more about media, right? And how we could interact with each other and how this would break down corporate barriers and norms and allow people to really talk to each other one-on-one without being intervened in or being siloed. And in some ways, some of those principles have held true, but in many ways, it ain't that anymore. Not anything like it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's interesting you say that, right? Because we would send a message out, and it was almost like I was talking to you and you were talking to me if you were online at that time, because so few people were there. I remember, Chris Brogan and you and me and David Meerman Scott, right? And some of us, we'd send a message, post a tweet, and we'd actually get answers like I was sending you a private text message. Like, "Hey
Right.
Geoff, like, hey, good morning, everyone. What's new?" And you get 30 or 40 responses.
And it was kind of like being at a party, right? Because
Yeah.
we would be talking, but then all of a sudden, a few other people would come in, and the next thing you know, you're like, you got Canner and all these other people, and it turns into like this big huddle in the middle of the party where everybody's just like going back and forth, and that's really fun, right? And it then hashtags hit. Remember that? Oh my God, hashtags and
Yeah.
all the other stuff. And it was really crazy. But I feel like that period ended when they put the algorithm in and they killed the stream.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I agree with that, right? I mean, what happened is, yeah, we're all fighting for attention, which meant we all had to write even better headlines, often sadly that didn't even relate to what we wrote.
Right.
That right, it was almost like we'd write a good
Sensational.
headline. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, total
Yeah.
sensationalism. And I would argue that kind of killed the free press, and not free as in freedom, but the freeness of the press, where they all got stuck competing for the same ad dollar instead of getting any subscription revenue. Would you agree?
Yeah. I would say that a lot of what we see now that's published as news is sensationalized specifically because if they don't get the clicks, they don't get the dollars.
That's right.
Right. Yeah. It's
Yep.
just the way it
Yeah.
works.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's interesting, right? If no clicks, no dollars, and that absolutely happens, right? So let's think about how that shifted, right? Because that algorithm, the acquisition of TweetDeck, the fact that they shut their API down, those all happen about the same time, right? If
Right.
we think about it, right, in about 18 months, huh?
2008 to 2010 period, right? Like
Yep.
2007 was like, oh, Nirvana. And then it just started getting worse and worse and worse. And the personal branding movement hit where everybody had to develop their personal brand and look good and be uniform and don't say things that you wouldn't normally say. And which is, it's funny because I just finished a book that's about 5 years of a guy that espoused all those things, but in all the wrong ways. And
Yeah.
he was so contrived. But it's just, if you think about what we really wanted to do, it wasn't to do that stuff to be popular or to get the most followers or to, convince other people. It was more about authenticity. And I don't think you hear that word very often anymore.
Yeah, well, I think the reason why is because we went from, hey, let's be authentic to let's act authentic. And I think
Right.
that's where the shift happened, right? Because being authentic, I mean, Jeff, we're going to talk today. Some people are not going to like what we're going to have to say. I'm just going to be honest. And some people are going to love it. And that's okay. That's
Yeah.
authenticity. That's real. I mean, I don't care, right?
And I'm
The
okay with
seven
that.
people, right? I'm okay with that. But 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I think that was less the case, and people really want to shape and mold and all of that. So now I'm grateful, Rocky Marvel's here, Ben Lichtenwaller's here. We're going to get to some questions from them. But I really think, yeah, that whole acting instead of being really, really changed the game. I mean, we see that now. You're a photographer now, Jeff. So let's
Right.
let's kind of move to the middle, and then we'll get to the end here, and that is, you're a photographer. So what do you think of these silly apps like Photo Feeler that help us make the perfect profile picture, Jeff?
It's funny. I was talking to one of my photography friends today because I have a new camera that it avoids shake. Right, it's
Oh
got
yeah.
the body stabilization, so it's really awesome. And it was about a photo I posted, and we were remarking that soon it's all going to be the photographer. Excuse me. It's all going to be the photographer's fault if you have a bad photo because the camera is going to be perfect. And if it's not, the app will definitely take care of any coloring issues or anything like that, right? And
Yeah.
so, the reality is that I think it doesn't matter if you really think you can produce a perfect photo with your Instagram app or whatever filter. It's not going to tell an authentic story. It's not going to necessarily tell people what you're trying to communicate unless you know how to shoot. And one of the funny things that I think that happens with this stuff too is that we get like it's very similar to what we were talking about with Twitter, where there's a prescription, right? This is the prescription for a good photo. This is the prescription for a good brand. This is the prescription for a good tweet that gets a lot of engagement, and then you just get everybody following that along. But in reality, there's nothing original or nothing unique about that kind of photography.
Yeah, well, not, and that gets back to your word authentic, right? I mean, you have to shoot your photo as far as what you see, and that's where I think so many people want to paint by numbers, right? They want to say, okay, so if I do this, will it give me that? And I think nowadays, people that deviate from the norm are the ones that get some attention, which is why I really like your book, man. I don't think a lot of people are going to find an angle like you took. Not just, hey, Trump sucks. That's not the angle, right? The angle was really through the eyes of the protesters and how they took that. So, why did you decide that that was the story you were going to tell, Jeff?
Well, it's kind of accidental, to be honest with you. For me, like many people, I was not very happy with what happened in 2016. Um, I'm not going to defend the election that year because I kind of felt like that we had two really bad candidates. And I'm sorry if that upsets anybody on either side. But I think when you have bad candidates, you have bad presidencies. And we got a bad presidency. And the thing about it for me was uh, when the Muslim ban happened, it was very alarming for me personally. I photographed the inauguration for a book project that my friend Joe had done, and that was very. It was filled with conflict, and the immediate period after the election was filled with conflict. But the Muslim ban really kind of turned things for me. And the reason why is my family has a long, long history of protecting civil rights. My great granduncle started the Anti Defamation League. I mean, it just goes on and on. We're Jewish. We had relatives run right out of Europe. We had other relatives fight the Nazis. I mean, so there's just certain things that, like, when I see them happen or I see like those types of conversations, I feel like you have to fight them with everything you have in you. And that's basically what happened for me. And so, even though I agree with some of the economic policies and everything that got implemented, because I do tend to lean more towards the middle or conservatism financially, from a societal issue, I was just absolutely dug in heels wide. This guy's had to go. Um, but what can I do that would make a difference? And the only thing I could think of was to take the camera and go show these protests. Because when you see a protest on TV, you see a bunch of people carrying signs. You get that kind of sensationalism that we're kind of conditioned to get a whole bunch of clicks, and you're not getting the story of what the actual people are, their faces. And so as a result of that, I decided I was going to photograph these things and I was going to put them on Flickr. And I know anybody that's an old school social media expert knows what Flickr is. But
Thomas
Flickr,
Hawk, baby. Yeah.
yeah, right. I mean, it's really kind of like saying you like the Brady Bunch, but a lot of media and nonprofits use Flickr still, and the reason why is it's Creative Commons. And so I would put the photos up there with a Creative Commons license for nonprofits, and that's most small media outlets or nonprofits and associations and causes to use the photos to have their own conversations. And I did that for 4 years. And then finally, when I got to the election this time, and I'm shooting it, and it was just so crazy, right? And I'm not even talking about what happened after the election. I'm talking about election week. I just, I'd had people bugging me for years to do a book, and I said, this is it. This is the book. I'm going to do it because I have the content, and I think it has to be documented. These people, particularly this year, these protesters were facing so much retribution. They were getting smeared. They were getting called Antifa, rioters, socialists, communists, which is a lot worse than Snowflake, right? And you can see how it progressed. And then there was the physicality of it. I mean, there was a sense of danger at all the protests this year, and so I felt like I had to do something, and that's how it happened.
Cool. Cool. Well, first, I want to echo what Ben says here, and that's thanks to you and your family for for the work, because that's real work, man. That's real work to start the Anti-Defamation League, to even to take those pictures, man. You put yourself not in great harm's way, but certainly sometimes it was more harm's way. So thank you for that. And second, I think it's great that you finally did decide to put these in a book, because it's interesting to see the progression. So at what point did you decide, Geoff, that Twitter was no longer going to be your game, man? And why did you decide that?
So 2017, I had 20,000 followers and I killed them, right? So I
Yep.
just nuked the account. But for me, I mean, you had known me for the period of time. I had evolved from being that social media guy to as photographer. I still have like a marketing and communications business, but I had found that I made more money doing marketing and communications in DC just by private networking than doing all that social networking. So there was no value for me to talk about that stuff on Twitter. Clients don't really want to be seen on Twitter in this area, right? And in addition to that, it wasn't doing that much for my photography compared to Instagram or Facebook or even Flickr or 500 pixels and a whole bunch of other places. So I just looked at the analytics. I saw this asshole just destroying that place, right? Excuse my language, folks, but I'm just going to lay it down. And it was really unpleasant. People were just talking about real Donald Trump, and I just said, fuck it, man. I nuked it. I left.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, from a business perspective, not even a personal perspective, but I think from a business perspective, it helps to pick a lane and go deep, right? If we're talking here, your strategy to move almost completely visual, I think has really helped you a lot, man, because I used to see you now and then on Twitter, but now I see you all the time on Instagram. I see you not as often on Facebook, but I certainly see you there. And I absolutely, if I'm going to Flickr, I'm going to see it. You even in your newsletter, you even give away a photo every week in your newsletter that folks can do something with. So what was the impetus behind that? Because that's really interesting, Geoff. A lot of photographers would not give away in many weeks your best picture that other people can do with that. What were you thinking there?
So, I mean, I think that gets back to that era where you came from, right? Where content's something that you give to people to build value. And so landscapes are interesting because I love them. I love doing big street pictures. I just looked at one from yesterday on at Capitol Hill. I can't wait to publish it after we're done. But, I love making them, but people don't really buy them. Sometimes they win awards, but people don't buy them. So they like to buy pictures of themselves, and they like to hire you to do that. That's the truth. So I make these photos. I give the best one away every week, or one that meets the mood or the theme of the week. For example, if it's the holidays or whatever. And I think that adds a little value. People probably are more likely to open that email because they know they're going to get a little story. May not be perfectly written, but they'll get a story. They'll get a free photo, and that's cool. I stay in touch. They get value, and it's really that. That's it. It works.
Yeah, it does work, and I think it's really smart, and I like it. I don't. I'll be honest. I don't open every message from anybody. I mean, right? I know, right? No surprise there, but just full disclosure, right? I mean, that's just the truth. But when I open it, I always enjoy it, and I think that's the mark of a good, a good creator, right? Is that as people do have time to consume it, that it's still enjoyable. I think it's both timely and timeless. You mentioned about taking pictures for the holidays. Right now it's more around, DC and things like that. But I think that's really cool, man. That is a value. I have right now on my phone, actually, I have that beautiful picture you took of DC as my wallpaper on my apps, because it just reminds me and centers me to focus on the bigger picture instead of local crap, or in many cases, I mean, sadly, people in the feed sometimes can just be obnoxious. They really,
On
because it
Facebook,
polarizes. Yeah, right. Facebook. Yeah, not as much on Instagram, I guess, unless you jump
it's
on a
harder to be a
politician's post.
douchebag with a picture. I've noticed
It
that.
is. Yeah, well, because I can't comment back with a meme, right? And
Right.
I think that makes a difference. I mean, not that memes aren't popular on Instagram, but on Facebook, I mean, you can search every GIF on the planet and find the most obnoxious one to comment back to completely polarize your friends and alienate your family. I mean, I just think that's really tough, man. So what was part of, you shut down Facebook for a while, right? Personally?
I found myself not being there very often, and I do go through periods like that. I find Facebook to be toxic generally, um, but at the same time, it's if you I don't think you can be off of both highways, right? I look at Twitter and Facebook as the two big highways still, and I don't think you can get away with being on not one. That being said, I'm probably going to go into a little bit of a period after this whole thing cools off that we're all going through that we don't want to talk about.
Yeah,
and and I'll probably cool off a little bit. I mean, I think everybody needs that, and it makes a lot of sense right now. Yeah.
for sure. For sure. So talk to us about the book, right? It's not my president. I'm going to share the tab here that we have on here, because I think it'd be nice to show people what this is. And so it's 5 years of protests against Trump and the administration. It's kickstarted, which is really a cool way to do a book, because you'll find out if people are actually interested in
Yeah.
that. So 202 backers, right? And it did reach its goal, but still there's another bogey at 15K. So if you're thinking, hey, maybe we get this, so I want to encourage you to to pick that up now so you can get that. And I'm in batch 2, I think. But there's a lot here. So talk to us about what's in the book, Geoff.
Yeah, it's really, really helpful when people back. I'll just say that because we're able to print a high quality product, and I think people get a unique piece of art, and that's the goal. But if you scroll down, I'll show people kind of what's going on. You know, so this is we'll just use the photos. God forbid if we use the photos to tell the story, but this gets back to Charlottesville. I forget the young lady's name who passed away down there, but this was really a horrific moment, I think, for everybody in a lot of ways, where it really kind of brought home the racial conflict that we're about to see for the next few years. Seeing white supremacists embraced and kind of called good people was really kind of scary. And so, when that happened, I really thought about this guy in this photo, and here he was in front of the White House, and he's a black guy. He's got a white lady's photo who died, he's alone in front of the White House, basically teared up protesting, and it was just so powerful to me, because guys like him are never going to get celebrated on Fox News or CNN or the Washington Post, but it's guys like him, millions of us across the country, that probably made the change happen in 2020. And that's why I call it a story about heroes. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. And that was Heather Heyer. I just did the research, just looked that up quick. Heather Heyer was the person that perished in that attack.
Yeah,
So
over,
very,
right? Yeah.
yeah, she's run over by an idiot that was driving in there. So yeah,
Yeah.
so here we go. Yeah. So
The,
next 2018. Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah, so in 2018, this one here is another issue, which is still talked about today, which is separating children at the border, and we still have 500 children that are orphaned. If you think about that, I mean, think about the humanity of that. You take away somebody's parents at the border, then 2 years later they're still in a detention center somewhere, living on government food, which is just horrible. And but they can't find their parents. And look, we don't know everything that happened, and I'm not going to throw out theories, but man, you have to wonder, did the parents make it back? Are they still alive? I mean, I can't imagine being a father not doing everything in my power to find my child. So this was just shocking. It was horrible when it happened. It's still horrible. It's a huge stain on the country. It just really kind of upset me when it happened. One of the things about this photo that's interesting is it took place at a protest filled with ministers, female ministers that were protesting the movement. And I think one of the things that's like an underlying issue that gets brought out in the book too is that women had a huge role in protesting against Trump through the years.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Good stuff. And again, nonviolent protesters here. They're the heroes who
Yeah.
demanded the change. And this book is all about them. So here we go. Got a science march here
Yeah.
for this in 2018.
This one I like because it was like two things in one, right? And actually, we ended up putting this guy in a different chapter. We had a chapter called The Kitchen Sink because there were so many damn little issues that broke out all over the place. And not that to call the Russian impeachment or that whole issue with Special Prosecutor Mueller a small thing is a little bit ludicrous, but there were just so many issues we couldn't cover them all in the book. The reality was that this guy was out there with his Mueller time shirt, which was hilarious for any dude because you're thinking Miller beer, that's hilarious, that's funny, and he was at the Science March, of course. Which, God, can you imagine if people had listened to the Science Marchers in 2017 and 2018, and where we are today with 400,000 deaths with COVID? I mean, it'd probably be
a little different time. Yeah,
right?
for sure.
So,
yeah.
the Science Marches were the best protests, though. They were like parties, man. People would show up in costume. They were like showing up in like beaker costumes, all this crazy stuff. Hilarious, really fun.
Wow. That does sound like fun. Really cool. So here we go. So here's one at about the Muslim ban. You said that started kind of your anger here in 2017 at Dulles.
Yeah, so this was the first major protest post inauguration that I went to, and it was at Dulles Airport. It was literally, they announced the Muslim ban the day before. The next day, this is happening at Dulles Airport. This is the international baggage claim, and these guys are coming out of baggage claim. They came from a flight from somewhere in the Middle East. I'm not sure where, and they were greeted by several hundred protesters with their signs saying, "You're welcome here. Please stay." And this guy's an Islamic gentleman throwing his phone up in victory, right? What a great moment where people are embracing people of vast and different cultures.
Yeah. So interesting. So interesting, and how they were taunted, they were sneered, they were people doxed them. It was really something, man. That's really really tough. So so this is interesting, right? A journalist having to carry a helmet while they're
Yeah.
working. Geoff, what the heck is up with that, man?
Well, it's something that started happening this year during the to be candid, the Black Lives Matter protests. There were enough tear gassing incidents. And let me just be clear, what happened this past 2 weeks ago isn't anything like some of the protests I've seen for the Black Lives Matter protests. But the police were much more likely to tear gas a Black Lives Matter protester than I've seen them treat some of the white supremacists that have been coming to the DC area for the past few weeks. And when those things happen, and they're shooting rubber bullets and they're shooting tear gas out, I mean, I think we all know what happened at Lafayette Square when the president went out for his photo op. I mean, it's dangerous, and the media needs to protect themselves. And I was just in Virginia this past weekend shooting for the final chapter of the book. And there was supposed to be, like the Proud Boys and Bugler Boys there. And instead of wearing just a helmet, the press is now wearing bullet-proof vests. They're wearing body armor. I mean, that's insane, man. That's like third world country kind of media coverage. And here we are in the United States of America, where the media has to protect itself from getting attacked.
Wow. Lots of stuff there. Let's take a look at maybe one or two more here, Geoff, because these are really, really strong here. Lady Liberty. Funny enough, I saw this one today. Either you posted it or I was going through your feed when I was doing some research here. Lady Liberty, 21st Century Edition. Really, really powerful. A little baby there. Wow. So talk to me about this one.
Yeah. So when election week happened on Saturday, right? It was announced that he won, and everybody in DC just went boom out onto the streets. It was a jubilation. Now, I know some people may feel like, oh, of course, it's a liberal city, but I don't think it's like that here. What you're really talking about is a federal city, right? So everybody's been working for this guy. Think about that. And he sucks as a manager, man. And we've all had bad managers before. So people were like, yeah, right. They ran right out on the street. I've never seen so many American flags in one moment. And this woman was just, I saw her with her flag. I asked if I could take her picture. I had no idea she was breastfeeding in the moment. And she just turns around, she goes like this, boom. And I'm like, okay, man, right? And this incredible photo came out, and it reminded me a lot of the French Revolution, the famous Lady Liberty photo where she's carrying the flag and like her clothes are kind of half falling off, which is kind of it's a little bit of a sexist video. Probably doesn't work for sexist painting. Probably doesn't work for the woke era, but it definitely is iconic for freedom and liberty. And this is like a 21st century edition of that, right? Here's a woman who's a professional. She has a child. She's open about breastfeeding. She's not going to be ashamed about it. And she's a proud American. And she's proud to have voted for Joe Biden. I think it just says so many huge things in one powerful photo. I honestly think this is the best photo in the book.
Wow. Yeah, it's stunning. And as there's so much there. I mean, the composition in the background, to the building, to the flag, to the woman, to the fact that she's breastfeeding, her arms outstretched. I mean, there's just so much there, Geoff. That's a great picture. It's really beautiful, man. Congratulations. Yeah. So let's skim down here. We've got a chapter list. Let's look at the cover. Let's see. Do you have any? Did you take any? Is there a recent one here at the bottom that we want to? Here we go.
Yeah, right there. Yeah. So this is so what happened at the insurrection was actually MAGA Rally DC 3, right? And who knew the third movie would be even worse than the other two movies? But this was from the second one, and that was the one where we had Proud Boy militia literally patrolling the streets of DC looking to beat the crap out of people. And I actually had one of them go after me. I had another one try to like get in front of my camera a few times and stop me from taking photos. And so they were literally violent. And as a result of going to this one, like I'm not a member of the press, but when I go to protests or when I'm out tomorrow, I'm actually going to be carrying mace because of that. And I just feel like I have to do it just in case I get, a crazy guy going after me. But so you have this pack of 20, 25 guys ready to kick the crap out of like basically Black Lives Matter protesters who they call Antifa. And having seen enough Antifa over the past 4 years, that ain't it. And here's this one guy who's out there just showing them down. And he's a trans guy, actually. His name's Nicky. And Nicky had his fascist losers hat with like Trump with this big swastika on his head, and it had the same thing on both sides, right? I'm like, oh my God, this guy's going to get his ass kicked, right? But I think he was so far like beyond anything that they could deal with in their macho culture. They just kind of looked at him like and walked right by him. It was really weird, you know. But God, what a brave soul, right?
Yeah. Wow. Wow. So lots of protesters there, lots of stuff there to think about and to consider that. It's really interesting that that's there for people to get. I mean, Geoff, the pictures you've taken, what would you guess over the last 5 years? How many would you say you've taken? What, 20, 30, 50,000? What?
Yeah, I would say
Do
that's
you
about
know?
right. 25, 30,000. I have no idea though. You know, I mean, like I'm going through the ones I took yesterday. I think I took about 400 or 500. World will probably see about 20 of them. Maybe two will be in the book. You know.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's really interesting. So Les Patterson says to honor the work our media does. He had the privilege of being part of media in years past, working with and escorting the press while in military in Iraq. Absolutely, Les. Definitely lots of props to the media, folks like Geoff and the actual the big media, right? The, if you will, the mainstream media is putting themselves in harm's way to make sure that we see what's going on. It is really impressive and really incredible, man.
Yeah, and they've been attacked so much over the past 4 years, which is part of that effort to seize control of the country, right? So
Right.
they did a lot to save the country over the last 4 years.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Geoff, as we're kind of wrapping up here, of course, folks can get your book and learn more about you at geofflivingston.com. It's on Kickstarter only for another day. So if you're watching this live, you still have an opportunity to back it. If you're catching the recording a little bit later, unfortunately, you probably will not. But I know your website will be up. So what's next for Geoff Livingston, man? What else are you working on? What's I know you said you're going to take a break from social media, but what are you going to work on next? You got any idea?
I'll come down to Florida and shoot with you, bro, as soon as this
Hey,
freaking
there we go.
nightmare is over, man.
I
Hey,
love
no
that.
COVID. I'm going down there.
Yeah.
uh, you know, the book, it's going to take, we got to produce it, right? We're about 60% of the way through it, but we got to finish up the layout and get it to the printer and do all the proofs, all that stuff. And then, you know, we'll do another round of marketing. But after that, I think I hope we're in a normal state because I'd like to go back to just photographing national parks and doing silly street photography, right? You know, something normal, something normal.
There you go. Yeah, cool. Well, good. So Geoff's coming to Florida. We got that on the calendar, right? And yeah, more normal stuff, more normal photography. But Geoff, really, man, thank you for taking time over the last 5 years to document this, and thank you for taking time
Thank
today
you.
to share your passion, bro.
Thank you, Phil. Man, you're like a sick podcast host, man. I do podcasts too. I host them and I get other photographers. I do what you're doing. Man, I'm like picking up points from you. You're awesome, man.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. Well, it's easy when I have great guests like you. So thank you for being here, buddy. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in live. And if you're watching this on the replay, drop a comment. Let us know what you think. Go to geofflivingston.com. Get a copy of the book, right? Kickstarter. It'll take a little bit to come back, but it'll be absolutely worth it. So, Geoff, once again, my friend, thank you for being here. It's always great to spend time with you, buddy.
Thank you, Phil. You're the man.
You too.